Welcome to the beginning of our season here at Illyria Gardens. Today we are sharing with you some of the first things that we do to start off each new year. It's currently January 18th.
It's the middle of January.
And the high for today is like 11 degrees.
It's cold outside.
Fahrenheit. Yeah, it's cold. So
perfect day to start planting seeds.
And we're starting with the super hot peppers. So these are not the average hot peppers like jalapenos, Hungarian hot wax. These are the super hots. They handle with care, cook with caution kind of seeds.
Yep.
And there's some challenges with them if you're doing these at home as a home gardener, if you're starting them like in your kitchen. So we're going to walk you through what we do because we usually have a pretty darn good success rate. What do you
around
think?
80%, I think, for
80%
most of the time.
germination,
Yeah.
which is pretty good for the super hots.
Yeah.
So we're going to show you what we do for that in case it helps you at home. But if you're up for the challenge or if you're curious about how we do it, we're going to take you through step by step. So why are we starting them so early?
Well, they take up to 2 weeks to germinate generally, sometimes sooner, sometimes a little bit longer. If it goes more than 3 weeks, then there's probably a problem.
And that's just to pop up out of the soil. That's
soil.
just to germinate. So
and then you're looking at another 100 to 200 days to actually mature and start getting fruit off of the pepper plants. So
and we're in zone 5. So that means we have a somewhat short season to grow a hot pepper.
Yeah.
So we start them now in middle of January so that our customers can actually get a good crop before it starts to freeze.
Because May can be a real bag of tricks as far as like if it's warm, then that's helpful. But sometimes it's still cold all the way through May, and so you're not going to get much growth out of a plant in May. So like the earlier we start, the better for this type of a plant.
So what we're going to be doing is just starting the seeds early, and the first step is to sanitize. We like to start with a clean slate. You actually prefer glass.
I prefer glass to ceramic just because I know that it's clean. It feels clean when I do it. So I've already sanitized these once, but I'll do it again for you guys. Just wipe it out really good with a little bit of alcohol, or you can do, just use some soap and water and get it clean, and then make sure that you give time for it to dry thoroughly, because with alcohol you don't really want to pour water in it while it still has alcohol. So you want the alcohol to evaporate. We've got all of these marked, and we're using a horticultural marker over a Sharpie because these actually will last for a long time if they get wet. Sharpies tend to last a month.
Yeah, maybe. So like out in the sun, right? We handwrite a lot of tags out in the greenhouse, and these are like an oil-based ink, and so they won't bleed with water and they won't fade in the sunshine. So like you're still gonna have, at the end of the summer, your tag will still have the writing on it, and that's a big deal, especially when you're harvesting peppers, because that's.
And so this one's called Garden Marker by Artline, in case anybody wants to go look it up.
We get them on Amazon.
Yeah.
And the markers last a long time, I feel like, too. So wait, hold on. Wear gloves. If you are sensitive to hot pepper seeds, you need to think about wearing gloves. We don't. We've already washed and sanitized our hands. The glass jars are sanitized. We've already made our mistakes with touching the seeds and then touching our eyes afterwards.
Yeah, don't do that.
The gloves help remind you that you are you're handling something that needs to be handled with care. The hot pepper oils than others. And
some people just can't control themselves and they're touching their face all the time like me. So
I do the same thing.
I do that, yeah. So.
We've done our mistake already. So we're gonna put
water in now. I want to put the water in.
You want to do it?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'd like to put the water in now. Let's see if I can do it without spilling. All right.
One shot.
Oh snap! Here we go.
Man. We usually would just fill these from the faucet. By the way, we are on well water.
If you do have concerns about your water, you could just try picking up some spring water or something from the store.
Yeah. Oh, but temperature. You were talking about.
Yeah, try to have it room temperature. Don't use super cold water, because that's going to, seeds don't like to germinate in cold water. So you're trying to I wouldn't use hot water. Just try to go room temperature. It's hard to screw that up.
So we put water in these glasses because we're gonna put the seeds in the water. Yeah. But we're gonna go over what these seeds are first. So you see the labels on here. Ghost pepper. So these are we have 3 super hot peppers in the greenhouse that we germinate. So ghost pepper, which held the record in 2007 as the world's hottest.
Yep.
Then we have the Trinidad Scorpion, 2011 was the record. And then the Carolina Reaper, that is currently not the hottest pepper in the world because Pepper X
has taken it over.
But we can't get the seeds to germinate. That's still he's still developing it.
Yeah.
So
the guy that developed, Ed Curry is his name, developed the Carolina Reaper, also has developed Pepper X. He's not releasing Pepper X to the wide market to be produced.
For retail.
So if that happens, we'll have it as soon as we possibly can.
We're watching
for now,
and waiting.
Carolina Reaper is as hot as we can get to everybody
And this
else.
has a really good flavor. Like we've made...
they're great.
Great chili. You've made chili. My daughter
Kind of a
makes...
sweet, smoky
Yeah, it's
flavor.
a really good flavor. And you don't need a lot.
No, you don't need a lot. Ghost peppers are going to run under 1 million to right around 1 million Scoville units, which is hot. Trinidad Scorpion, you're looking over 1 million to like 1.4 million, 1.5 million. Yep. And then Carolina Reapers, you go up to 2 million Scoville units.
For perspective, a jalapeno is
It's like 5,000.
Yeah, on average. It can usually people say around 8,000, but that's like at the top end. So there's a lot of variance in each pepper plant and each pepper you pick off of a pepper plant.
So you're looking in the 100 to 200 times hotter than a jalapeno for these.
That's hot.
So
the seeds are potent. So again,
so be
gloves
careful
if you need to.
But we're not going to be careful because we've handled.
You've
them
already
before.
made our mistakes.
We know what we're in for. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead and just start opening.
Putting them in warm water for 24 hours is going to help the seeds start to absorb water. They'll start to kind of plump up a little bit. And what that water absorption does for the seed is releases enzymes that kind of help that seed wake up. So what we're doing is just speeding up the germination process maybe a couple of days. And when you're waiting 2 weeks, a couple of days matters. You can kind of do this for other types of plants. Like if you're planting bare root roses, a good idea is to drop them in a warm bucket of water while you're digging your hole. Same process, same idea is you're just softening the outer layer of the roots so that they have a little bit quicker wake up time. So asparagus roots, you do the same thing. You can drop them in a warm bucket of water while you're digging your trench. Just kind of speeds up the process. You don't have to do it to everything. Some things are really quick to germinate, so you don't need to do this step, but things like these hot peppers, they can be a lesson in patience.
And you'll notice that the seeds currently are floating. They will, as they absorb the water, they will actually start to sink. And so tomorrow, after about 24 hours, we'll come back here. We'll probably just discard any of the ones that are still floating because they're probably not viable. And then we'll just keep the ones that have actually sank to the bottom. And this will, slowly within the next half an hour or so, you'll start to see some of them start to drop down. And then by tomorrow, the majority of all of them should have dropped down.
Do you want to talk about the paper towel method?
Paper towel method basically is you've got a Ziploc bag and you've got a paper towel. You wet down the paper towel.
With water, not alcohol.
With water, yeah, with water. You put each seed in kind of a grid on there, and then you fold it over. You put it in a like a Ziploc bag. You leave a little bit of an air gap, and then you put it in a fairly warm spot for a few days. It tends to germinate just a little bit faster. It's nice because you see exactly, how many seeds germinated, so you get a real good sense of. It's
confidence. I feel like it's a confidence booster for if you have kids. This is a great.
That's fun. It's fun.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's gratifying for kids because they can see it start to sprout.
Yeah. We don't do it because when the seedling starts putting out the roots, you get the really fine little roots, and those actually work their way into the fiber of the paper towels sometimes, which makes them kind of hard to pull out. They also tend to just kind of get all wiggly. They don't really have a sense of which way is up, and so you end up with a stalk that is curvy. And we for our purposes, we're going to sell these all retail, we like a nice straight stalk that's going straight out of the ground and is nice and strong. So we just do it that way because we end up with a better product. And also it takes a lot of extra time to do the paper towel.
But what's nice, if you have old seed that you've stored just in your cupboard, you can take 10 of those seeds, do the paper towel method, and it will tell you your germination rate. So you'll know if those seeds are they still have a good germination rate, or if you're looking at like 50% or lower, just know that. And then maybe those are seeds that you do the water thing first, so that you know, okay, the top seeds I'm just going to get rid of, and the seeds that sink.
Because you can hold seeds over for multiple years. Like if you put them if you keep them in a freezer or refrigerated, you can keep seeds for multiple years depending on what type of seed it is.
Potentially decades too.
And so if you're just curious about, that's a good way of like knowing how viable those seeds are, and if it's time to go ahead and discard those seeds because you're only getting like 20% or something like that, then it's probably time to get some new seeds.
It's frustrating. So, like if you don't know your germination rate and then you plant an entire row or like your whole garden with seeds and then like barely anything is coming up. It could be from a variety of reasons, but one of the reasons could be your seeds are no longer viable depending on how you store them. So a lot of things can affect that. Moisture levels, because again, any moisture is going to start to waken up those enzymes. Temperature, if they get too hot, that's going to decrease the germination rate. Again, same thing. Heat and water is going to start to wake up those seeds. So if they've started to use their energy in any way, shape, or form, that's going to decrease your germination rate when you go to actually plant them. The next thing that we're going to do is tomorrow, after these have had time to absorb the water, we're going to take you guys out to our germination room, and we're going to show you the next step to plant these seeds in germination trays. Yep. A couple more challenges with those, and we'll go through that as well.
Yep. So we'll see you tomorrow out in the greenhouse.
Okay, it's been 24 hours since we dropped the seeds in the water to soak overnight. And we're now going to separate out the good ones from the bad ones, and then we're going to plant them in germination trays.
All right, so the first thing we're going to do is, and like I said, for this you want about 1 inch of soil in here, and so...
I don't know if you mentioned that. Did you mention that?
I don't know if I mentioned it or not.
So
you want about 1 inch of the soil in here
on the bottom, and this is really, really fine. Like it's almost like not quite like flour, like baking flour, but really, really fine stuff.
Yep.
And there's not a lot of seeds in here, so we just fill one side of this, but we don't ever combine 2 different types of seeds in one tray. So it's a little bit of extra space. That's okay. We just make sure that there's only one variety in each of the trays.
We're going to start with the ghost peppers first.
Okay. Do you have your seeds or your...
Yep.
Okay, so we have handwritten... Oh, look, 4th of July on that side. Handwritten tags here. And I do 2 of them so that no matter which direction you're looking at these tags in our germination room, you see a tag.
Look at this.
One is
floating. So we've only got 1 floater. So out of 200 seeds... It's
pretty good.
That's pretty darn good. We're just discarding 1 seed there. So now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to dump off some of this.
Let me do it over here. Come here.
No, let's just do it right here. Okay. We'll do it right here. That's fine. That's fine.
It's fine.
So we're gonna dump out the majority of this water. Leave all the viable seeds down there at the bottom. And get rid of most of that water. So now we've got all of our seeds here. And so now comes kind of the tricky part is this part takes a little while because they like to clump together when they're wet. When they're wet like this.
You can probably dry them out on a paper towel if you want, but like honestly,
nah, just
get them in the dirt
right
fast.
to it. Yeah. So you want to get them. So there's the clump. They're clumping. I'm going to use the other side of this spoon here to help spread them out.
You want them kind of evenly spaced, but when they're sprouting up, and you'll see because we'll show you at that stage when we go to transplant them. It's okay if they're next to each other, so it doesn't have to be perfect.
They will make room for themselves, though.
Yeah, it does not have to be perfect.
It doesn't have to be perfect, no, but. So we still have some in here that are quite a few clumps, so I'm just going to kind of make my best effort to kind of spread those out just a little bit more. As they start to grow, they're going to make room for themselves.
Doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah, you want to do the best you can. So now what I'm going to do
So we've got an inch.
We've got an inch, and now we're going to want to try to put around a 1/4 inch more on top. So this part you got to be a little more careful with.
Just like a light cover.
Yeah. Just enough so that each one's covered and they have a little bit of soil to push through. It's going to help. Got a little bit high there.
That's okay.
It's going to help insulate them. It's going to keep the temperature a little more consistent. It's going to keep the moisture level a little more consistent with a decent amount of soil in these. Sometimes you can use too little soil in this part of the process.
So that's that, and now we can
we'll mark them. We'll mark them, and I'm going to go ahead and water this one. I water this part on this initial watering fairly heavy because our hope is we want to have that moisture carry through as long as possible at the most consistent temperature as possible. One of the ways that the temperature comes up is the soil starts to dry out a little bit, and then you want to kind of keep that level, and you really only want to keep the ground moist. You don't want to just keep soaking it every time, and so you want to kind of wait till it gets to that dry point where it needs water, and then you give it just enough water, and you don't give it any more, that it'll carry through for another couple days, and hopefully within a week or two they start sprouting.
We'll show you guys when, because we water it in.
Well.
We don't make it mud though. There's a difference between watering well and making it muddy. After
so I'm going to go ahead and turn around and water this real quick.
Okay, so we've got the seeds planted in the germination trays. They're on the heat mat. The heat mat is set to 85 degrees. Like we said, it's going to take maybe up to 2 weeks for them to pop up, but we've watered them in really well. Once they've popped up out of the soil, we'll show you what that looks like, and at that point we take the cover off of the germination tray so that they've got fresh air, and we don't run into things like dampening off where there can be mold or mildew inside of that little mini ecosystem and take all your seedlings. So we'll show you all those things, so stay tuned next.
Okay, now we are 1 week from when we planted these seeds, and we already have little pepper seedlings sprouting in all 3 of our trays, so that's good to see. There's enough of them at this point. I will take the clear covers off so that these guys are getting full sunlight and we're not getting the little delicate starter leaves too hot during the day. Keep following their progress here, and probably another week or 2 we'll have enough up that we can start actually transplanting them into their full-size pots for going out on the retail side of our greenhouse.
So we're back. We have our peppers that we germinated about 20 days ago. So remember, we said that it took about 2 full weeks to 3 full weeks to get these guys to pop up. We did pretty good. So about 20 days later, this is what they look like. Remember, the way that we got them here was through a couple of things. Number one, we applied 85 degrees of consistent heat morning, day, and night. Good airflow. So that means we had a circulation fan running in our germination room. That helps prevent any dampening off, which is caused by mold or fungus that might be unable to escape underneath the canopy, and that basically just rots out the stem. And you'll come in the next day and they'll just be like squishy and folded over, which is really sad to see. So no dampening off for us. The other thing is light. We are in midwinter here in Nebraska, so we don't have enough light for these guys to grow healthy. So we put grow lights on them and give them an extra few hours of daylight. I think we've got it set at 12 hours per day. That's kind of how we got them to this stage. Then the other thing that's really tricky, and everybody has to figure it out for themselves what the growing conditions are like, but consistent moisture. So we checked on these guys minimum twice a day. Morning to make sure the temperature was okay through the night, and then in the evening to make sure they were okay through that day. And we kind of pick up the trays to see how heavy they are. If we can feel the tray is decently heavy, but we're not seeing pools of water on top, we're doing our job okay. So they're evenly moist all throughout. So that got them to this point. They are ready for transplant. That means that they're about 1 inch tall. And if you can see, we'll give you guys a close up here. A lot of these, the majority of them have their second set of leaves, which is what's called true leaves. Rather than just that first set when they first germinate. Those are like their little baby leaves. Once they get that second set growing and they're about 1 inch tall, you don't really want them too tall. It is time to get them some more room. So we've got our soil here. This is good potting mix. It does have fertilizer added, so they've got some good nutrients. This potting soil is mixed evenly moist at the get-go, so they are ready. So we're going to start transplanting them, and we're going to show you a little bit more on what to consider when you get to that stage. Okay, so we're going to move the ghost peppers out of the way. This is so that we don't get confused as to which pepper we are planting. And I have my tags here ready to go. These are the Carolina Reapers. I have a couple of things. I do have my tags so that I know which one I'm planting and which pots those are in. And then I have just any tool. Sometimes we use like a pencil that we don't want to use, and we'll go ahead and sharpen it, and then we'll break off that lead so it's a nice, gentle, round tip. Those work really, really great, so we just don't throw bad pencils away around here. But this is a short little bamboo stick. Anything that's going to be skinny enough that it's not going to be too bulky for the stem, and it's not going to make too big of a hole in the soil, just big enough, right? So now what we're going to do is slowly take up just a little bit of soil on an edge in this germination flat. And I'm going to be really gentle. There are 2 peppers here. I'm just gently going to separate them. Okay. This one is tiny. I'm just going to transplant the ones that have their second set of true leaves on there. Okay. So we're going to poke a hole right in the center of the pot, not too far down, but down enough that we know we're going to get all the roots down in there. Now, when we plant this is a pepper, not a tomato. When you plant a tomato, you can plant it really deep, like almost all the way up to those leaves, and bury this entire stem. On a pepper, you can't do that. You have to kind of pay attention to where the soil line was in the germination flat, and you don't want to plant it too much deeper than that level. The reason for that is because on a tomato stem, you'll notice there's little tiny hairs all up and down that tomato stem, and each one of those hairs can potentially become a root if it sees ground. Okay, so when we plant it, we're going to be very gentle. I'm going to lay the roots down and just push them down into that hole. And again, make sure we don't go too deep, and just kind of tuck it in. That's it. So I'm going to make my hole in the middle of each one of these pots. Okay, this is one flat. And then I'm going to pull up more of my peppers, kind of shake some of the soil off, and grab a bunch kind of gently so I'm not breaking off leaves. And then I'm going to come over here, and I'm just going to lay them down. I'm going to do this fast. We've got kind of a system to help our efficiency here in the greenhouse when we're transplanting these. Sometimes they hang on to each other. You got to really, really gently untangle them. And that's why, too, when you go to do this, you don't want to leave them in the tray much longer than this. This is like the stems are sturdy and strong. All right, so now I'm just going to take my finger. Can you see that? And I'm just going to push it down. Make sure all of those roots get into that hole. And standing up straight. And I'm being gentle when I push that in. Then I'm going to go back for more. It doesn't take a lot of effort. I think the critical thing is to be gentle when you're pulling them out of the tray. Make sure that you're paying attention to the leaves, and you're not getting one that looks a little different than the others. So this is a great example of how the second set of leaves form. you're gonna, at a certain stage, see sometimes just 3 leaves. But if there's a tiny leaf that's coming out, that's okay. It's gonna have that full pair, that two new true leaves are gonna form. So, okay, so here's one tray. I'm gonna make sure these guys are tucked in and not too deep. Then, very important, tag them right away so you know what you've got. Oh, and I didn't mention, I have gloves. These are super hot peppers. So now, I touch my face a lot. I have to make sure I don't touch my face. That's hard. All right, so now we're gonna go to the watering in after I finish off a lot of these trays, and we'll show you how to water them in. Okay, so we've got them planted. We have them tagged up to a certain point. We are still waiting on our tags to be shipped to us. So what we've done is we've tagged the majority of the ones that are in the front, and then we've got one in the back, just to make sure we know that these are all reapers. And once our tags get here, we will finish tagging the rest. If you look closely, we have the peppers planted right about soil height from what they were in the germination flat, give or take a little bit. And what we're going to do at this stage is water them in. When you water them in, you don't want to blast them with water to the point where you're knocking the stems over. You want to make sure it's like just a gentle rain, but you do want to make sure that this water is going to soak all the way through to the bottom of the pot. The reason for that is we water them in once, and then we wait until at least the top inch of the soil is dry before we water them again. Because what we're going to want to do is encourage those roots to go down deep into the pot. So they're going to chase that water down into the pot so that they're going to develop really strong, healthy roots. And their roots aren't going to get what's called lazy roots. And that means that all of the water in the pot is up at the very top of the pot. They have no motivation to go any deeper into the pot. And you get really shallow, unhealthy roots. So when you water these in first, it's really important to make sure that that water goes all the way to the bottom of the pot, and you want to encourage those roots to follow that water down. Oh, by the way, this is a dram watering wand, and then these are our nice 1,000 count water breakers. And again, that makes a really nice gentle spray. It's not too hard. It's not too chunky, like you don't get big drops. It's a really nice even spray. So we always start it off of the tray and we hold it up so that it's not going to blast too hard down on the plants. And I'm just going to go kind of at an even pace the whole way down, just like a rain. And then I'm going to let that soak in and I'm going to do it again. All right, so now that's soaked in a little bit. I'm going to do it again. And it's an even pace. It's not going to be too wet where there's a lot of water that's pooling on the surface. But the other thing I'm watching is I want to make sure that water kind of backfills the hole that I put. And then right about this stage, do you see some of them are like this little guy here? It's kind of getting buried. That will happen. Gently just kind of plop him up. Make sure that the leaves aren't catching the soil. And it's interesting. It's kind of fun to watch. Over the course of tonight and tomorrow morning, their stems will just stiffen up and they'll pop right back up. But you want to make sure that their leaves aren't being too weighted down by the soil. So we just double check, like this one here, that has really healthy big leaves. That could have stayed down because there was too much soil on top of those leaves. So now, if you want to make sure that the water got all the way to the bottom of the pot, you can always pick up a pot and feel it. You can feel where the weight is. And I feel like this is evenly moist all throughout. Like the weight isn't top heavy. It's not bottom heavy. It feels like the whole thing has moisture in it. So that's a really nice way to double check yourself. Make sure you did it right. That's it. All right. So the next step is to monitor these guys again twice a day, if not more. We really pay attention to the weather at this point, how sunny or cloudy it is at night, how cold it is, to make sure that the temperature stays consistent.
And then we'll grow these up big and strong for our customers sometime this spring. We usually open around April 1st. Usually the last average frost date is mid-May, but every year it's a little different. So really pay attention to the weather. So if this was helpful for you guys, please let us know. If there's something about the germination process that you guys are struggling with or that you have questions about, please let us know in the comments. Right now, this time of year, we have time to read through the comments and respond to you guys. Once we get rolling through the season, our full day from sun up to sundown is out here in the greenhouse. So it's going to be a struggle for us to respond. So keep that in mind. Now is the time to ask us questions and let us know if there's any other kinds of videos that you want to see from us, and we'll address those topics. So thank you guys very much. Like and subscribe, guys. See you this spring.